So do you
Matter of fact, he was
Right. I think we can go ahead and get started. Welcome, everybody. My name is Steffanie Bourque. I'm a staffer at the Rutland Regional Planning Commission, and I'm working with the town of Rutland as municipal project manager for the US Route 7 North Shared Use Path construction project. I'd like to welcome you tonight to the first public meeting for this construction project. This is our local concerns meeting to kind of kick off the project, not only for the town, but with the community. So joining us tonight is the design consultant, Eric Alling from Stantec, that will be basically facilitating tonight's meeting. He has a presentation that he'll lead everyone through. And basically we'll end with, as usual for a public meeting, some opportunity for comments and questions. But with that, Eric, I'll turn things over to you.
Sure. Hi, everybody. And sorry I'm a little late. I was in the select board Zoom link. So I just figured out a couple minutes ago I was in the wrong one. So let me share my screen and let me know when you can see it.
IT guy in the corner. Wait, can we put the screen over there?
So I've been
Yeah.
Yeah, we're a
Right.
small group. Please,
Good
folks,
idea.
make yourself
Oh,
comfortable.
yeah, put it there, though.
You know,
We
you
can
don't
all-
want to
everybody
crane
can
your
see
neck
it,
through the
us
whole thing.
included.
Feel free to shift around.
If-
So Eric, we're just doing a
Yeah.
quick pivot in the room here.
Yep, no problem.
We've got like 5 members of the public here, in addition to board members and you know, Dave, our road commissioner, and Bill, our town administrator. So I'll let you go ahead and get started now that we're all settled in a more comfortable viewing situation.
Sounds good. Thanks, Stephanie. All right. So we'll start by introducing the entire project team. You've already met Steffanie Bourque, who is the municipal project manager for this. Other members of the team from the town are Joe DiNardo, Dave Sears, Kurt Hathaway, and Bill Sweet. The design team, which Steffanie mentioned, is Stantec Consulting, which is myself as the lead designer, supported by Israel Maynard, who will be the project manager. And finally, we have Derek Kennison at VTrans acting as the project supervisor. He will help facilitate plan reviews, any permitting, and just generally keep things moving smoothly on the state end. So why are we here tonight? Steffanie hinted a little bit at this, but we're going to share information related to an upcoming construction project for a path. We're going to take a quick look at the project development process, review the project area and existing conditions. We will take a look at the proposed path and then wrap up by answering any questions anybody has and talking about the next steps. So the project location is along the west side of US Route 7 from just south of Lincoln Avenue up to Post Road, and the blue line represents where the path will be roughly. The goals of this project are to create a link between existing facilities. There is sidewalk along the north side of Post Road and along the west side of Route 7 going south in the project area. This also supports the town's goals to encourage other forms of transportation rather than motor vehicles, and it will also increase pedestrian and cyclist safety. A little bit of the background, how we got to where we are. This project went through a scoping study, which wrapped up 2 years ago. That scoping study looked at impacts to environmental, historic, archaeological, right-of-way, took a look at the costs, weighed different alternatives, and included a pretty robust public process, which had several public meetings and even a survey. So when that process was complete, the study team and the town came up with a preferred alternative, which is for that 10-foot shared use path with a 5-foot grass strip along the west side. And this is a pretty good look at why the west side was chosen. There's a pretty well-worn footpath here where people are already using it today. So it'll be about 1,700 feet of path. There may need to be some retaining wall in certain locations as the existing ground drops off steeply from the edge of the roadway. There'll be a bit of new curb, some pedestrian handrail where there's a culvert that the path will cross, an existing culvert, and then possibly a drainage structure towards the northern end of the project. Just so we're all on the same page about how projects go through and get to construction, they start in project definition, which was that scoping study. At the end of that, the town and the public embraced a preferred alternative, which was the 10-foot shared use path. So they were able to use that scoping study to apply for grant funding through the V-Trans Bike Ped program. They were able to secure that grant, and that's going to cover the detailed design of the project and construction. And when we're done this phase, highlighted in yellow, the engineering phase, we will have a set of plans and construction documents that will be available for a contractor to build the project. Quick look at the existing conditions. We've got a speed limit of 40 throughout the project area. There are variable width shoulders throughout the length of our project. About 12,400 vehicles per day travel through this area. The right-of-way width is 99 feet. There is some curbed and uncurbed section and aerial and underground utilities within the project area. And these 4 pictures show pretty much the whole length of the project, starting at the southern end. This is at Lincoln, and you can see the Xfinity building sign here. And then right up here, you can see the existing sidewalk where it ends. So this project picks up from there. And then this is a little bit further to the south, just about at the intersection of McKinley. This is one of those steep drop-off areas where I mentioned might require some retaining wall. And then a little bit further to the north, still looking south, this is where the culvert crosses under Route 7, where there is a need for some pedestrian handrail or safety fence. And then finally, the northern end of the project is at Post Road, and you can sort of see going off into the distance almost the whole length of the project here. And with that, we can jump into the plans that were developed at scoping. Just one warning about these, they're not really intended to show all the project impacts. There's just not enough information in scoping to do that, but what they do really well is show the sort of scale of the project and where the path is going to be located. So I can blow that up a little bit so everybody can see it better. So just at the edge of the screen here, you can see where that first photograph shows the existing sidewalk heading south from the project area. So the path picks up here, crosses Lincoln Ave with new ramps, crosswalk markings, and detectable warning surfaces. Continues along. There are some utility poles here that the scoping study identified as needing to be relocated. We'll make that determination when we get the detailed survey files and figure out where they can go. First section right here, you might just be able to make out this thicker black line. That's an area where there might need to be some retaining wall. Again, with the detailed survey surface, we can figure out if that's going to be necessary, if we can grade without putting in retaining wall. That's it for the first sheet. So let me go to the following page. Whoops. Go. Continuing on, another area, this is where that photo was taken, where it was really steep. So we'll know again for sure when we get the survey files, but retaining wall is likely needed there. Another crosswalk across McKinley. Continuing along, this is where the culvert is. You can see in the background photo where the stream, and then the culvert carries that stream under the road. So this is where that handrail would go. And then finally ending on the northern end of the intersection with Post Road, where there'll be a new pedestrian signal, new crosswalk, new pedestrian phase added to the traffic signal, and then a small length of 5-foot sidewalk to connect it to the existing sidewalk on Post Road, which you can see right about in this area. So that's it for the project itself. It's a pretty straightforward path project, but here's a little look at what's still to come. So we are due to get the survey files around the end of this month. Once we do that, we'll jump right into conceptual design. Those plans will be packaged up with all the environmental protection documents that need to be completed as part of the NEPA process. That usually runs about 6 months. So that's putting us into summer of next year. And we would jump into the preliminary plans as soon as we get NEPA clearance. And once those preliminary plans are reviewed and cleared, then we can jump into the right-of-way phase. And this is where I'll warn about the schedule shown here. The right-of-way phase can be highly variable. Sometimes things go really well and it's very smooth and goes quickly. Sometimes it can take a year or more. For planning purposes, we've assumed that the process will take about a year. So that means we would get right-of-way clearance in 2026. And then from there would be final contract plans, and that would allow us to bid early in 2027. If all goes according to this plan, the path construction would be complete by the fall of 2027. That's it. Like I said, a pretty straightforward project. I'm happy to answer any questions at this point that anybody has.
I have a question. The right of way, is that Route 7? Is that state? A right of way from the state? The
I
town,
believe
or-
that's class 1 town highway through there.
Israel or Eric, they might be asking, Eric,
Yeah.
right of way clearances. Some of that is more the the private property we have to cross and getting the okay there. Isn't that what we're dealing with that?
Yeah, so any easements would be, so these are the rough right-of-way lines shown. So any impact that goes outside of that line is potentially a place where the town would need some easements, and that's where that right-of-way process can start to slow down a little bit depending on how much easement's needed. The study did identify one area where they thought there might be a need for some permanent easement, but once we get the survey files, we will also have the actual right-of-way lines, and we'll be able to figure that piece out at that point. Does that answer the question?
I think so, yeah.
Okay.
Well, I can ask a little more about that right of way then. It's my understanding that for highways, the right of way goes beyond the physical highway where it is, because there was some need for right of way for construction purposes. And my initial impression was we're going to use that right of way would be where the path is, or most of it anyway. So that all comes from the town, you say? Because this is not all in the town. Some of it's city, isn't it?
Yeah, so the very southern end of it is in the city, and the town is working on maintenance and right-of-way agreement to pursue that portion, and any right-of-way impacts that might happen in that area. So yeah, there is a little bit of city property involved in this as well, or city right-of-way.
And
but
was
yes.
my understanding.
Oh, sorry, go ahead.
Okay. I'll let you go.
I was just going to say that, yes, the plan is to have the path as much be completely within right-of-way as possible. And so
So Eric, I think part of the confusion for this gentleman in the room is that is state highway. So that work in that right of way, and you're right, sir, the ownership limits extend well beyond the edge of pavement, but it's state. So we'd be getting, permission from the state to construct the path within their road right of way.
In addition to any private property, we'd have to.
Correct. Right. So I think as Eric was saying, the intent is that the permanent path infrastructure would primarily be built within the road right of way, except for a very small section that he's got shown on this slide here. But there may be some temporary easements that would extend outside of the right of way that would be needed while the path's being built.
Thank you.
Yes, you're welcome.
thanks,
So
Stephanie. I
the-
apologize for not understanding that question.
No worries.
And then,
Also,
yeah, I
that's a
think it's-
99
I'm sorry, go ahead.
Eric.
I was just going to
That's
say,
a
it's worth noting that
94.
the town's not required to compensate the state for that right of way like a private property owner. So yes, it is the state's right of way, but
99
that's,
foot right away. So theoretically, the state owns 49.5 feet from either center of the road. Part of their survey process will be to see if the road is in the middle of the right of way. We all assume the roads are in the middle of the right of way, but it may or may not be. So that's what they have to do to find out where the edge of that right of way is on the west side.
Do Skip and Paul know what's going on?
What's that?
Do Skip and Paul know what's going on yet?
Oh, yeah.
They do?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Oh, yeah. They've all, see, we had one meeting during the scoping study, which was a public concerns meeting, and it was open to the public, and so pretty much everybody knew what was going on at that point.
For the
Yeah,
most part, people are on board.
as far as we know, yeah. Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah, because where Paul's land is and where Skipper's land is, the portion of this sidewalk should be within the state's highway
Yeah,
right away. So even though they mow it and take care of it, the construction can be done in that.
yeah, in that
They just
window.
got to determine how much we have there based on where Route 7 is located within that 99 feet.
Alright, cool.
Any other
Eric, I had
questions?
another
Oh, sure.
question. If, yeah,
Sure.
can you hear me okay?
I can, yes.
Based on the new lines for the road right on Route 7, how close does the beginning of construction on the south end line up with what they just did for markings for the bike lane on Route 7?
It's tough a little bit to tell from the pictures, but it looks like it's just up the hill a little bit past where the project limit is. So we will definitely need to look at some way to transition our project onto those on-road bike lanes, and it may involve slightly redoing some of the pavement markings, you know, sort of outside what was considered part of the project limits here. But that once we have our survey files, we can take a closer look at that.
And then where it connects at the crosswalk, is the width of the new sidewalk at the bottom of Post Road wide enough for multi-use?
Well, what was shown in scoping is just a 5-foot sidewalk to connect to the sidewalk on Post Road. That's something we could look at during design as well, making that wider, but this was the recommendation that came out of scoping. I don't think that would be considered a drastic enough change to have to, you know, get the state's buy-in much more than just having Derek sign off on it, but that's something we can look at during detailed design.
I think it was I probably didn't word the question well enough,
Oh,
but
sure.
it's more like, are you assuming or expecting, or I guess from the light at Route 7, are you assuming that if it's multi-use that people can ride their bikes all the way up to Rutland Town School with no issues and then get
Yeah.
on to the road?
Yes.
All right.
How wide is that sidewalk along Post Road? 5.
The one going down by the school down across the flats, is that 5? That one might be 8, isn't it? Going down by GMP,
The original sidewalk along Post Road.
because they used to plow that with a 1-ton.
Yeah.
Might be wider than 5.
Might be down there.
Yeah. I've never measured it, so I
I
don't know.
never have either.
Yeah, I think it's a little bit wider.
We plow it with 5-foot plow in winter. So
That's what you get, 5 feet in the winter, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
They used
that's
to-
what you get.
They used to plow. with
You
It
can
could be
plow-
10, you're getting 5.
Yeah. The new part, you'll have to plow twice.
Right. And that line striping thing, that was brought up to Derek
Yeah.
at our meeting last week. So that's
It's about,
kind of already in the queue.
I tried to look at it. It's about maybe 400 feet.
Yeah, that'd be about right.
Yeah,
And what I'd like to see, and we can talk to these guys, is if it would be is to extend the left turn lane that's come through the city all the way to McKinley Avenue.
Boy, that would be nice.
And if they did that, well, that would have multiple benefits.
Well,
Because what happens as the cars come out of that one lane to 2, the speeds between there and Post Road are in excess of 50 to 60 miles an hour.
I
so-
see it every day, man.
We would have to petition the state or do something, but that would be my recommendation from the town, that we ask that configuration to stay until Post Road and then come back to the
And it
2.
would make sense for it to break right there anyway.
Yeah, and we were behind the 8 ball when the city started this project, so we weren't able to get that in the works, but now would be a really good time to work on that.
Cool.
yeah, and
That question has been asked a lot,
You know,
even on the Woodstock Avenue end by Gleason Road.
right,
I don't know what V-Trans would allow, but we could always we were short on room in the right of way, you could always move the curb in 3 feet because you wouldn't need the bike path heading southbound.
Mhm.
So you can move the curb in 3 feet, and then you'd gain some extra room in the right of way.
Right.
I don't know if V-Trans would have a fit about moving all that curb and narrow on the road, but
No, they'd make us move it. It would
Well,
have,
yeah.
it would end up being part of this project if we could work it together, but that's a possibility on the south side from,
so that's
Yeah.
something, Eric, while you're looking at widths, you know, that's something to also consider. We might be able to cheat another 3 feet out of the road if we change that traffic pattern.
Sure.
and it makes it more universal too. That's the other thing. It keeps it kind of consistent. Yeah, it's funny you brought that up, Josh, because that was one of the things that came up at the end of our meeting when we were rehearsing for tonight is the transition now. How do you go from,
Worse now than it was before.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
because if you build a sidewalk and it encourages bike use,
Yeah.
now what are we gonna do with them?
Yeah.
Because you can't ride on the sidewalks in the city.
Exactly, exactly.
And you'd have to be safe, you'd have to stay on the sidewalk till you get up by Paul's Cleaners.
Exactly.
And then you can
Then
use
you
the new
move
bike
out,
lane.
yeah.
Yeah. So, but I'm glad we brought it up at the beginning of the project, so they'll have plenty of time to work on it. Some history with this project, the reason we chose the west side, or we had the option as a select board as to what side we chose. And we chose the west side for a couple of reasons. Number one, if you use the east side, the crossing would be up by Comcast, theoretically. There's no traffic control there. And a lot of the foot traffic coming out of the city and all the other places, they're going to the river. So that means they would have cross Route 7 up by Comcast, walk down the east side. When they get to Post Road, they'd have to walk back across. So that, and then when you get where that cornfield is, right at the end of Lincoln Avenue, there's a whole wall of ledge there that would have to be removed. So there were numerous reasons why the west side was the better. We do have some issues with that's that spot right there where the ledge is. So it would be that side would be mostly cuts. In order to put the sidewalk in, the west side is fills because of the way the road slopes.
Yeah.
So. But that's the transition area right there. This is an older photo, so you don't see that, but that's about where the markings are for the new transition.
Mm.
And it's straight up the top of the hill where it starts. But that's some of the history why we picked that side. That yellow car looks like it's going in with a guardrail.
So Eric, do you want to let
Yes.
folks know in the schedule of next steps that you shared when the next public informational meeting would be?
Oh, yeah. Help me remember. I think we were talking about after preliminary plan. So it would be sometime in about a year. Does that sound right to you, Steffanie?
Yeah. Yep. So there'll be potentially, at least one, if not two public meetings between now and when the project design is finished. Unfortunately, when you're using federal funds, there's a lot of like, hurry up and wait. So,
Not even
You
hurry
gotta-
up. It's just
even-
wait.
Yeah, you gotta jump every hurdle, cross
then
every
that-
stream.
the NEPA, the National Environmental Protection Act, all of that process can take, on average 8 months to get through, because they're looking at all of the potential historic, cultural, environmental impacts of the project. And even though this is a pretty simple, straightforward path project in a, disturbed area, because you're right along a, US Route 7, you still have to go through the same process. So that's a really time consuming spot. And then, as Eric's already mentioned, depending on the project impacts on right of way, that can take time to sort through as well. And we won't have a clearer sense of what those impacts really are until we get into at least conceptual and then more so into the preliminary plans. So that's why there'll be a circle back with a next round of pretty much updates to the public as we get further along in the design process.
Yeah, by preliminary, we'll know exactly where we're gonna need, retaining walls, if any. We'll have a relocation plan for the utility poles. So the plans will be fairly complete at that point. So it'll be, and we'll know, we'll know pretty much exact, anticipated impacts at that point as well for right of way. That should be a pretty informative meeting at that point.
What's your method of getting the information out about these meetings? I just happened to be fortunate. I saw it on social media, but so that's the first time I've heard of this. Any of this going on. Hadn't heard about any of your other public meetings.
We've been struggling to get meetings out to the public for
Okay.
2-3 years now. It's just
So this is
people aren't looking.
this is
It's
the
on the
first
town's
meeting for
website.
this
So
project.
that's where Bill, all of this
Yeah.
stuff will be posted on the website, town's website. You can find pretty much anything going on in the town there.
Yep.
We can add it to the highway's got their own Facebook page, right? So we'll probably incorporate it with highway.
Okay.
So there's numerous,
Well, it's just a matter of knowing where to go and look.
right,
Mhm.
yep. The
Yeah.
town website will direct you to just about every place you can find whatever up there. And Bill does a really good job of trying to stay on top of it.
So maybe like in the news section of your town website, as well as a calendar, if you've got the calendar feature on your
And-
website.
And if it kind of coincides with, like, if we know when there's a publication of the circle coming out for the town, so if you're a town resident, you get the circle, we'll try to put some updates in there, and maybe that's something, Dave, when you do your report, you can put a little, where, and, so like, I'm not sure what the exact schedule is, but I know one comes out in the, early winter, February, March, somewhere in February. And so there, whatever that schedule is, we'll try to make sure that if there's any information available, that you guys have it.
Thanks. Yeah, this is Bethany, calling in from Zoom. Yeah, that was going to be a suggestion to use the circle to get them information out. And Shelley, I'm right with you. It was I randomly came across it at social media and I took a picture of it and just like put it on my calendar and like look back at the picture back in October to know how to even get into the meeting. Front Porch Forum might be another place, calendars, because yeah, I don't think a lot of folks know. So I'm super excited, as you all have shared. So I live off the East Pittsford Road. That the speed in this section of Route 7 is just horrific. So I'm grateful to hear about a good buffer between the highway and the actual path. And just concerns that, just extra support goes into that pedestrian crossing on 7 because it's ugly. See it every day.
We cover everything, Stephanie. She's making notes.
Making notes.
As far as I think, yeah.
Yes. I want folks to, at least at this point in the process, understand kind of what's involved, where we're at, what's being done, opportunities upcoming for additional public engagement. There'll be copies of meeting notes from this session, along with a copy of Eric's presentation that will be provided to the town for them to post on the website. Any follow-up, feel free to email me at the Planning Commission or email Bill, and he'll be sure to get anything to me. And then I can make sure that it gets to the local planning team and the Stantec folks if it requires that level of follow-up to get an answer on something. Or if you just have things that you think that the project should be aware of, moving forward.
I know
Please feel free to share those.
the planning commission sending out a newsletter now, like once a month with the stuff that's going on. So I wonder if you could have like I've forgotten what all the headings are. I know like clean water was one of them.
I don't have a project heading.
Oh, well,
Newsletter.
I'll get Devin to give you
He'd
one.
have
We'll make one up.
You'd put it in the transportation section.
And yeah,
So, yeah, it might kind of get lost in ours.
because I
I mean,
like
we put these meetings on our website
Yep.
as far as upcoming events, the community bulletin board, and we push it out through our regional planning commission Facebook page as
Yeah.
well.
There was a time when
So,
everything went. Everybody
yeah.
knew it. You know that?
What's that?
There was a time when all you had to do was put it in the Rutland Herald and everybody knew it.
Well, if you put it in the
But-
Herald, I actually might see it, but yeah.
But if the circulation is
Yeah.
such that it's not like it used to be, but maybe we can do that.
It gets expensive.
Yeah, the
I
online,
think they do have a free section, like under the events calendar or something. It's actually,
so that might be another avenue we'll look into then for the next meeting and.
just asking, that's all, you know. I mean, Clarendon had the same problem. They canceled the select board meeting and you have to see on the bulletin board at the transfer station. Oh, I got news for you. I don't look at the bulletin board at the transfer station.
But, you know, like I say, that if you go to the town's website and if you're just out, you know, cruising something on your internet computer doing just,
It's usually not town websites.
but now that you are aware, that's a good
Right,
place to
right.
go because everybody's going that route.
Yeah.
It's posting stuff. I mean, when just, it's not even nothing to do with this, but if we're trying to sell something in town, where do you post it? I mean, we tried everything.
Yeah.
Then it got down to word of
Bids
mouth.
out, It's impossible to get people to reply on bids.
Yeah.
So,
It's no good place to post stuff anymore.
Well, at least you had a few Rutland Town residents here.
yeah. Do you have any concerns, Josh?
I think it sounds great.
Well, I know you're an avid bike rider, so
Oh, yeah.
I figured you were here in favor and not.
Kind of like
against.
to see that. No, Bethany brought up a good point. I mean, for me, I'm like front and center. I see it every day. And I thought that construction would be really good, but it's actually increased the speed on the north end of town. Like it's insane.
Well, yeah, because they're so frustrated
It's,
because they gotta drive the speed
and
limit.
it's
for
all day
3 minutes.
long.
Yeah.
So no, I mean, if there's a way to, I mean, I don't want to be the ding dong that's out there playing in traffic, but if there's a lot of us out there, then maybe it'll get people aware.
Right.
But that, I mean, you see it, the second that light turns green post road, it's like a racetrack.
Yeah.
So I think if there's a crosswalk down there and maybe there's an opportunity for the lines to change and, you know,
Eric, is in addition to, you said there's going to be ped crossing signal. What is actually envisioned there? Is there a rapid flashing beacon? What is it?
Oh, it would be an actual pedestrian crosswalk signal. So like the hand with the countdown and then the walking figure.
Okay.
So it'll be integrated right in with that traffic signal. And
Got
so there'll
you.
be some sort of a phase, whether it be to put both lights red at the same time for a certain amount of time to give pedestrians a chance to go across. Or if it's red for the entire time it takes a pedestrian to cross. That's something we'll look into when we get into preliminary final plans. But it'll be the pedestrian will be able to activate the signal from there.
Yeah, and just Bethany again, looking at what if there other enhancement might make sense as folks look at that intersection. You know, I don't know how long the crossing will be, if it's going to be enough time on that signal for folks to cross. You know, AARP does such wonderful work in doing that assessment. You know, how long does it take for somebody to get across? And yeah, just it's just brutal there. So anything that can provide additional safety measures. I just think because people are driving so fast that more than just a standard crossing signal may be helpful and needed for safety purposes. So, you know, not necessarily that the flashing signal one that, you know, people light up themselves, but anything to enhance, just because it's pretty dangerous. Most crosswalks people are typically already driving slower, but they are just flying through. And if it's a green light, they're just flying through at 55, 60 miles an hour.
Yeah, so a couple of points. One is we also take into account sort of the slowest users when we design the length of time for a pedestrian to cross. So it's just based on the amount of feet, and it will be enough time for anybody to get across. And the other thing to note is that when the pedestrian hits the signal, this is not going to be one of those little rapid flashing beacons where, you know, motorists are encouraged to stop, and they may stop more often when those things light up. This is going to be integrated in with the actual traffic signal. So when the pedestrian's able to cross, it will be red lights for the motorists.
Yeah, I understand that.
Yeah,
Thanks.
okay. Yep, sure.
All you gotta get them to do is stop for the red lights now.
Yeah, right.
Nothing you can do about that, Eric.
No.
Final thoughts or comments folks would like to share?
Spike strips.
I was thinking railroad crossing bars.
Yeah.
I'll drive
yeah,
through
yeah.
those too.
Gotta go around.
Outside the box thinking, I love it.
Yeah.
Well, thank you all for coming and
Thank you.
sharing your
Thank you.
thoughts and interest in the
Good to see
project.
everybody.
Yeah, see you tomorrow
I'll
afternoon.
see you tomorrow.
Yeah.
Shelley.
Thanks, everybody. Take care.
I didn't hear
Thanks,
you.
Eric.
Thanks, Eric.